crisis, the top priority of President-elect Obama. On top of the $700 billion financial bailout, there's the U.S. auto industry struggling to keep afloat. Will it be the next sector to get a big rescue check from the federal government? General Motors, the nation's largest automaker, sent shockwaves through the industry on Friday. GM reported it lost more than $4 billion in the third quarter of this year, a much bigger loss than expected. The company warned it could run out of cash in coming months. Another report showed auto sales plummeting. Auto execs met with Democratic leaders, and now House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid are saying the administration should consider including automakers in the bailout plan. And we already understand that we're getting a response now from the Treasury Department spokesperson, Brooklyn McLaughlin, about that Reid-Pelosi letter asking about the automakers and the financial bailout. And it says, quote, "We continue to work on a strategy that most effectively deploys the remaining TARP funds to strengthen the financial system and get lending going again." All right, well, some people are very outraged at this whole idea of a bailout of the big three automakers. So, is corporate America getting an undeserved boost from taxpayers? Joining us to talk about all of this, auto industry expert Lauren Fix on the line with us now. Lauren, for starters, help us interpret what the Treasury Department is saying. It sounds in part that it really just means that this is, I guess, they're not willing to commit to a bailout to the auto industry, but that it's a work in progress? Is that safe to say?
That's pretty safe to say. I mean, obviously, with Pelosi involved and Majority Leader Reid involved, and they're putting the issue on the top of their legislative agenda, which is helpful. But I think that the problem is we all want our automakers to survive because it affects jobs. But at this point, I mean, bailing it out is always something that people don't like to do. No one wants to help someone out because when we're having trouble in our personal lives, no one's going to write you a check or me a check. So I think that it's very possible that something's going to happen, but I think it takes time for this monies to go through, and that's what we're looking at right now. So perhaps
you can help us look into the two hypotheticals. If there is a bailout of the auto industry, then what's the potential fallout or gain from that?
Well, I think the first thing, if the automakers fail, if let's say I can't imagine this happening, but let's say all three automakers were to close their doors, it would be an economic disaster for the United States. And the reason it would be an economic disaster would be because if you really look at the big picture, one job affects 9 jobs. And we tend to think, well, it's just the dealerships or the people that work on the line. But all the companies that support that, the little cities that survive, like Flint, Michigan. I mean, there's so many little teeny cities that survive off of the auto industry. So if you were to affect accounting companies, marketing firms, advertising, event services, planning companies, it would be horrendous. And it would be not wise for our economy. And so that's why it's very important that we come up with some sort of bridge loan or some economic package that makes sense, that would really help the consumer as well as helping these companies survive.
Okay, so you really did kind of spell out what would happen if there is no way to resuscitate the auto industry. One job really affects 9. So if there isn't a bailout, then what would be the answer? How would you help resuscitate the industry, which all of them, the big three, are saying we're in trouble, big trouble?
Well, the same thing you would do if you were anybody else or any corporation. The problem is big corporations move slow. The automotive aftermarket, which I'm also part of, they move quicker because we're smaller. But when you're a big corporation and you've got, think about how many employees you've got, and like 22,000 employees, you're not going to be able to move that quickly. So what's going to happen is they're going to have to bring in experts to start cutting the fat, cutting out all those extra advertising, all those things that they might have wanted to do to support the arts, or maybe to support the Emmy Awards, or to support different trade shows. All that disappears. It's going to be lots of cutting out of middle management. There'll be a lot of people without jobs, and a lot of people are going to need to retrain because there may not be a place for them to be in that industry. And it's going to affect all of us, not just in the car choices that you have, the prices you pay for these cars, but it's going to affect the economy.
And you know, American auto symbolizes so much for this country, free enterprise for one. If this country were to see the auto industry, American-made autos, fail, tell me about the ripple effect and psychologically what this does to this nation's economy.
Well, it psychologically affects the economy and all the consumers in it. You may not think that on the surface, but it really does make a huge difference. I mean, if you think about where we've been the last 100 years of the growth of the auto industry, when the car is over 100 years old, it would not just affect the U.S., it'll affect the world. Because if we don't have money to spend on cars, it's going to affect the economies of other countries. Plus the fact that if you look at just the U.S. as a whole and you're thinking about people without jobs, it could turn us into a real economic downturn, much worse than we're already seeing right now. And I think it's going to be real hard to recover from that, because even with the internet being such a great friend to everybody out there, I think it's going to be really a bad situation if the auto industry doesn't survive.
And Lauren, we heard President-elect, while on the campaign trail, say that he wants to set aside millions of dollars in order to help inject into the auto industry, especially in the direction of coming up with a fuel-efficient vehicles. What is your hope that President-elect Obama would do in terms of first order of business to help the auto industry? If not a bailout, then what?
Well, it's going to have to be a bridge loan. I mean, obviously, the manufacturers at some point will turn things around like they have in the past, and they're going to have to pay that money back to the government. And obviously, there'll be low-interest loans. That's probably the best choice. And there's going to be a lot of renegotiations with unions. I mean, I know that the UAW president, Ron Geltenfinger, was really, trying to get in there to make things work, and he's got a lot of people that are relying on jobs, plus all the middle management that may not be part of a union that have to do that as well. So I think that one of the things that President-elect Obama can do is try to get these bridge loans through. Also, fuel-efficient cars is a small part of it. With the cost of gas dropping, many of us aren't even thinking about
And these are the things
cars.
that you heard directly from some of the representatives of the big three while they're in Las Vegas, right?
Right. We've heard from all of them. We've talked to them. We have the LA Auto Show coming up the week from Monday. There'll be a lot of input from the manufacturers to the journalists, and I hope to be able to report live from you as it happens.
All right, we look forward to that as well. Lauren Fix, thanks so much. Appreciate your time and your insight. Okay, well, we want to know what you think about all this. Should the auto industry be bailed out? Email us your answers at weekends@cnn.com. We'll read your responses in the next hour of the CNN Newsroom.